Okay, so welcome back. And today we have a guest. I was surprised that he actually responded to one of my comments. He's a little bit of a bigger YouTuber. He's got over 10,000 subs. So me with my little 55 subs, I didn't expect him to reply back, but I'm grateful. And we have Nomadic INK, and he's also a brother in the trades. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Okay. So I have a couple questions for you, and I want you to kind of introduce yourself first. How long have you been in the trades?
Almost 20 years now, I guess. Might even be longer. I've been in the trades since I've been 18, actually. So
wow,
I'm 40 now, so that's 22 years.
Now, have you been a union carpenter the whole time, or have you been non-union also, or how does that work?
I started as a non-union carpenter, actually, and then I ended up joining the union in California. And then since that point, I've been off and on, depending on what industry's going. I noticed that it's either residential's booming or commercial's booming. So if the commercial side's booming and you're doing good, you're doing union. And then once that kind of peters out, I'd flow over to the residential side and do some subcontracting. And, that has actually worked pretty good for me because, back in 2005, 2008, when you had the whole kind of economy. I kind of saw that on the horizon when I was doing the residential side of it. And, I noticed we were kind of building like ghost towns. There was no one buying these houses, and I made a few calls, and I was able to come over to the union and stay busy in the commercial side for almost 2 more years before it caught up with the commercial side. And then that actually bought me a better unemployment package too for when that did finally hit me. So it works.
So my question is, speaking about the housing crisis, I know that a lot of things changed around that time, as far as a lot of people left the union and never came back, right? So what was your experience? Because I got in 2016. So I heard a lot of people talk about, what their experience was for the trades and going through that process. How scary was that? And how much of a different, how violent was that? Whole move and the whole economy crashed like that.
That was actually pretty tough, to be honest. Like I said, I was lucky to get over into the commercial side to get the unemployment that I got, because they did a few different extensions on that, and I was able to collect, because you almost couldn't work for free at that time.
Wow.
I mean, no one would even hire you. It was crazy. I was begging for work. Even I was willing to go for companies and working at a fraction of the price just to work, even when I was unemployment, because I just wanted to be doing something even.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I know. I was told that there were some companies that got so their numbers dwindled so much that we had superintendents putting their bags on. People who maybe never even held a hammer before, they're now putting their bags on, they're doing the work. So they were kind of the last people to get laid off. And I was kind of told that, it kind of shuttered the industry. A lot of people who had a lot of faith in their unions or had a lot of faith in their companies, a lot of that kind of got shattered because no one could really keep anybody working. So that kind of always has that fear in everybody's mind where now unions are, especially my local 1503, it seems like there's a fear to really push too hard, to really try to go for the gusto when it comes to contracts, because everybody's so scared of something like that happening again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like that's a once in a lifetime thing, or you think that might be something that happens more consistently moving forward?
If we have some kind of event like that where we get a pullback in housing or even a commercial side, I could see that happening, where they basically got down to what I call a skeleton crew. You had the superintendents, like you said, putting their bags on, and basically the main guys that they need to build back up and run work later in the future. Those are the guys they figured, well, these are our most valuable, because it's hard to hunt for good leaders, so if you were to keep them around, you can always get people from the hall. But I left at that time, actually. So, it did dwindle, and I ended up going all the way to North Dakota, even, I think, for work at a certain period of time. Yeah. Building places out there for the guys in the oil industry. Ended up in Montana for a little bit, and I was gone for a while before, work was booming enough to come back. And I was calling periodically a couple different union contractors. Hey, you guys got work yet? What's going on? You need anybody? And it was crickets. I mean, no one would call me back. I mean, it was hard to even get a hold of anybody. So it was a rough time for a little bit. It's nice to see that where at least I'm at, and I think where you're at, I mean, we got quite a bit of buildings going up from a lot of these really big companies that are, trying to expand out. Amazon in this area is got tons of buildings going on, and a lot of people think of Amazon as just delivering your packages, but when you look at them, they've got like 21 or 22 different subsidiaries underneath them. So they got these giant towers. I just built a twin 15-story that's for Amazon, and they're building a couple more buildings down the road. So these companies, big companies, are just really expanding, which is adding to the boom. Microsoft's actually got like it's like acres. There's like 15 buildings they're building, and it's like almost a 6 or 7 year project out there. So if there is a pullback in tech and this expansion of these companies, then I could definitely see that pullback from the commercial side of union work or commercial work.
So now we've seen a pullback as far as like the commercial space, right? Where we don't see as many companies, a lot of people going more remote. Do you think that they're going to take some more of these commercial spaces and convert them to like living spaces, right? Because in Portland, we have a huge shortage of like housing, and we have all these buildings available that were for commercial, but now nobody's renting them out anymore, especially like all the riots that happened in the summer and all the chaos that happened. Like a lot of people, like Portland downtown isn't as like savory, or people aren't trying to like go there as often. You know what I mean? So do you think that they're going to start converting commercial spaces to residential, or what do you think about that?
That's actually a pretty good idea. Sometimes around here, at least, they have, the bottom part of the commercial space is, retail. And then they'll normally do a section that is residential, and then part of it that's commercial. But I can see them like reclaiming that commercial space and going residential, not to mention just the price of homes right now. You think if you turn that into a bunch of units, I mean, that's money, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then in those big buildings, it's not like you just sell that piece to a customer and that's it. They own it. They're going to have to pay some sort of dues for property maintenance and people that work there. And that's where those, buildings will collect revenue over time, and probably transaction fees between seller and buyer at later points. So that's definitely a good way for them to go if it is, unused space at some point in time.
Because I was thinking about that, because I think one of the main problems with like the downtown area, with there being so many like ghost town like buildings, there's a lot of businesses around that area that need that revenue, right? They need that foot traffic. But if nobody's working, then how do you get that foot traffic back? And I think the residential aspect could definitely be a positive thing to bring to the city, where you have a lot of people living in those areas, a lot of people moving about and like not needing a car, or maybe just having a bike, and so they're constantly walking around. So that can kind of bring back some more of that foot traffic that I think the Portland downtown area really needs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And are you seeing the same thing in Seattle? I know that Seattle also had like their kind of chaotic event when it came to the 2 summers ago, and they had like the chop zone and all that stuff. So like, has the Seattle downtown recovered at all?
It's been a while since I've gone to Seattle, to be honest. And I worked on the Seattle University during that time, and the chop was down 2 blocks down from where I was at, and it was crazy because they brought in trucks. I was watching one day. I'm like, what is going on here? There's these semis, and they've got these big dividers, and the city actually brought them in those dividers to take that portion of the city. And then the next thing you know, they got. I'm like, what? This is crazy. They brought in trucks and tractors and they literally set this up and they're like, oh, they took it over. No, you did this. And
you allowed them, yeah.
I drove by the police station every day and have line of cops out there just getting heckled. And then eventually that went away and they had the National Guard out there. And then finally that went away and the police station was just given over. The Lamborghini dealer down the road, shattered windows, boarded up, the whole city boarded up, spray painted, trash everywhere. Seattle's kind of a mess. I mean, it's in that same situation. I'm in Bellevue, and this is kind of where I like to stay. I try not to go down to Seattle, to be honest, because it's just not, it's not safe. It's not appealing. If I don't have business going down there, I don't go down there. Bellevue's like a night and day city. It's different over here right now.
So I also live in like one of the suburbs of Portland. So I don't live in Portland and I do work in there fairly often, but I kind of hear the same sentiment. Like every time I'm talking to somebody who lives like in the suburbs or outside of Portland, like there's no real reason to go back into Portland. So like, It's kind of like in a death spiral where like, you see more and more buildings are like boarded up. And now like the homeless crisis is going crazy in Portland because, we do try to help out the homeless. And I think now the help is kind of turned into like enabling. So now you have like the homelessness is everywhere where there's like no one to check it. There's nothing you can do about it. The trash is going crazy. And so it's kind of like, what do you do when like you're trying to help people, but at the same time, like you're making the situation worse? And I kind of feel like the chop zone was like the epitome of like giving people exactly what they want. And then you see like, okay, if we take the police away and we give you exactly what you guys want, it's straight up anarchy. You have like warlords going on and they have all the guns and like, more people are getting killed in the chop zone than, got affected by the January 6th riots. You know what I mean? So like the January 6th insurrection. So more people died there. So, I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about, the negatives on the right or the left, but it's like, you just look like, sometimes if you feed into chaos and you just let it do what it wants to do, you see that, hey, you guys aren't getting some kind of hippy dippy love fest going on right here. It's like, people taking over with AKs and the people who want to do, harm to people, they're going to. So it's just kind of crazy. And I know that's a sentiment that, that pervades throughout the union as far as the carpenters. Like we have a lot of people who are more conservative minded because we do work with our hands. You know what I mean? Like we get taxed fairly heavily. We're in the middle class. So like when we see what's going on to our cities, it's kind of like heartbreaking, especially when you are a part of building those buildings and, you put your blood, sweat and tears in those, and then to see people just like graffiti all over the place, shatter the glass, like people just like literally shitting on the buildings. It's pretty sad, honestly.
And that's true too. I try not to bring up that last point you mentioned right there, but I mean, it's pretty nasty, to be honest. It is a sad situation because some of the people that are homeless, some people want help. Some people are vets. And a lot of those people, like I see the need for helping them out majorly. Right. And you have a lot of people, like you said, that we've basically enabled to, use the system to their advantage to, not have to work or not have to do anything. And a lot of people complaining about not being able to get a job or work, but like, that there's a lot of work out there. These unions are bringing people in and you can come in making $18, $19 an hour, knowing nothing. You can't tell me you can't better your own life. At that point, you either just don't want to, or you're hooked on some kind of drugs. And there's a lot of programs and assistance for these people that they're either not getting or they're getting and abusing so that they can stay in the situation they're at. And until that changes, where we can either identify the people that are abusing and basically not really wanting to change, their life to the better, to join the society that we have, and then to be able to help the people that we know need the help. Maybe they're struggling in a way they can get some of that assistance to them and better their life. Then I mean, that's going to be the hard balancing part with the homeless. And I think that's really the biggest problem, to be honest, in both of our cities, Seattle and Portland, because I've gone down there and you've got the tent cities set up, and what's even worse beyond that, because I mean, obviously these people need to live. There's no argument on that, but you're not going to get the revenue. Like you said, you're not getting that foot traffic down there. And if I'm a tourist from another area, do I want to go to Portland and Seattle when I've heard those reports? And if I haven't heard any about any of that, and I go to those cities and I see it and it's dangerous and doesn't feel right to me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell other people, hey, don't go there. And that word is slowly spreading out from both these cities. And the only people that are going to those cities, I mean, either guys like me and you that are working, trying to build it up for these companies that are actually, flourishing in this time, and people that are there to abuse the system and live on the streets. And, I mean, you already know they're not even charging them with any kind of crime when they do steal. I feel bad for a lot of the businesses that are down there trying to make money and having these guys just walk in and out with merchandise, food, whatever,
Yeah. So me and my cousin, we did like a mini like documentary, like we did like a walk through downtown, and we showed like some of the areas, right? And I wasn't able to videotape this part because the guy was like really like aggressive, and so like we didn't want to push our limit, so a guy approached us like yelling and screaming at us, right? Like, What are you guys doing? Why are you guys filming? And it's like, we just want to have a conversation of like what's going on and like how can we help. And so he asked us like point blank, like, hey, do you pay taxes? And we're like, yeah, we pay taxes. He's like, well, I don't, and I like it like that. And we're like, damn. And he's like, you know what? I came from Alaska. I lived all around the country and I like it down here. I'm like the king down here. A lot of people are doing dope. A lot of people are mentally disabled or mentally, they have mental illnesses. And that's what's going on down here. A lot of us don't want to work. We like how it is. And so we're going to continue doing what we're doing. You know what I mean? And so the issue is like, we can't just keep giving into this because there's no end in sight. You know what I mean? Like where if you just allow people to do whatever they want and there's no consequences, well, why would they clean up after themselves? Why would they buy into our society? I think if you have that type of feeling, there's a lot of forest out here all around us. You know what I mean? If you really want to camp, if you really don't want to be part of society, then do it for real. Don't half-ass it where like now the taxpayers have to take care of you, which is unfair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where if you're not going to buy into our society, there's plenty of campgrounds. There's plenty of like rivers you can be around. You know what I mean? Like, hey, go do your thing. No one's stopping you from like, camping right next to Tillamook, the river or whatever, and then just chilling out there. Like that's really camping. You know what I mean? Don't urban camp. Don't tear everything up and then not want to clean up after yourself. Like, let's be, mindful of the people who are actually like helping you out. Like taxpayers are funding what's going on down here, whether you like it or not. So I think that's one of the main issues is when it comes to like charity, right? Well, if you have a charity, there's an agreement between the person and the person receiving the charity. Like, you're looking at that person, there's like a bond there. But when it comes to this, it's just they're getting money from the government. And so you don't see the effects of people that you're taking the money from, because essentially you are still getting charity. It's just there's no accountability for it. You know what I mean? You're just getting free money. But people are buying into this and it makes people angry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a taxpayer. I see what's going on. This makes me angry, but there's no one to hold accountable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. And you brought up a good point. If they want to live that way in a tent and survive off the land, that's different. And to have to basically live off the trickle down from the society that you don't want to be a part of. I mean, that, like you said, it's kind of selfish. And beyond just being, a burden on the taxpayers, I mean, no one really wants to live around that. You have these really expensive houses and you come down to the bottom of your tower, as I like to say, and you've just got homeless you have to walk over. There's a spot, this was years ago, actually. So recently it's probably even worse, but years ago I was in the city and down in like Capitol Hill. There's guys just sitting on the ground and all these people are down there partying in all the restaurants, literally walking over these homeless people. And it's just like, you guys gotten used to this, like, this little song and dance that you have here. Oh, we're going to come over here and they're all dressed up. And then you're literally walking over people that are you know, all strung out on the street. And I don't know, there's got to be some kind of tipping point, I think, beyond just taxes, where you just want to say, hey, I'm done with this. I don't want to come down and pretend that my lifestyle is like this, and this is how our society and culture is supposed to work, but yet I have to ignore and just blindly walk by and walk over what's happening at the bottom of, you know, at the street of the city. So I don't know, it's kind of sad, to be honest. You know, I'd like to see some improvement, but it's really hard to see some kind of change, because everyone has so many different ideas on, you know, what should be done about it, you know, or how we should be dealing with it.
I think this is where one of the issues, where it comes down to where you kind of need two sides of the coin, like where you have like Democrats and Republicans. And I heard an analogy that like they're two opposing forces, right? So they're kind of constantly pulling on each other, and that tension leads to the best results, because they're both going to give their input. They're both going to get their pros and cons. And so in the middle is where the best result is, because they're both kind of holding each other accountable, right? But then once you lose one side of the argument, you only get one, and it's like a rubber band. So when you're pulling it, it's keeping it in check, right? But what one side goes, then you just snap and fly all the way this way. So that's kind of like how our cities are. We have just a fully democratic system, and it's a lot of compassion, but there's no discipline on their side that's kind of holding everybody accountable and keeping this thing working properly, right? So if you see a place like Austin, they had a homeless crisis just like us, but you kind of see now that you have more of the Republican aspect of it, of like conservative, like, you know, we got to fix this. You guys can't be doing this anymore. We're gonna fix it, but you guys can't stay out here. So like, I think that's where like San Diego and Austin are kind of leading the way of like how to fix the homelessness crisis, opposed to like how LA and Portland and Seattle are doing it, where there's like, we can't fix it. We're going to build these multi-million-dollar houses for you guys, or condos for you guys, and they never get done. It's just a lot of bureaucracy, and it just seems like things are only getting worse and worse and worse. So I definitely agree with you, and I definitely think like, you know, the theft and just all these things where people are, they can't fix the problem, so they just kind of keep letting it go, and I think it's making things worse. I know that Portland was up, I think, for like a 2024, 2022, like NCAA, like place that they house one of the games, right? But the people came from the airport and went downtown and just see how bad it was. They're like, yeah, we're good. Yeah, never mind, we're good.
Wow.
And so once you start seeing that, like once you start seeing bigger businesses like leave your city and you lose opportunities like that, it's going to start hitting the pocketbook. And that's when I think the real change is going to come, where people are going to say, you know, this is costing us money. It doesn't matter if the taxpayers like it or not, but now that's affecting our bottom line. Now we're going to make a change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.